Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Alrighty. Ooh, wow, everybody's here. Missing one person. Good. That means we can get started. All right, we're going to look at asexual reproduction today, and we're going to do that by watching two videos. Basically, asexual reproduction is mitosis. So all the review we did with mitosis, we're going to continue with that. So we have two, and then we're going to also look at bacteria, because bacteria also reproduce asexually. So we're going to be talking about this chart right here. But before we do that, we're going to watch two videos back to back because they're connected. So they're going to talk about advantages and disadvantages. And then we're going to do a worksheet. Hold on one second. All right, Imani, wonderful. That's great. Hope that doesn't make you too tired to get your lessons. All righty. Okay. All right, so we're going to look at, like I said, two videos back to back. So I can skip it. Sometimes when I put it in here, it takes out the commercials, and sometimes it doesn't.
Reproduction means producing more of the same type of organism. People having babies, plants producing seeds, and bacteria dividing are all examples of reproduction. There are two main types, sexual and asexual. In summary, sexual reproduction involves two parents, each one providing a reproductive cell which combines with the other parent's reproductive cell to produce a new, unique cell, which can develop into a complete organism. Asexual reproduction, on the other hand, requires only one parent, and all the offspring are genetic clones of that parent. Let's look at them both in a little more detail. Under most circumstances, animals reproduce by sexual reproduction. An egg cell from the female fuses with a sperm cell from the male. These reproductive cells, the egg and sperm cells, are known as gametes, and this process of fusion to form a new cell is called fertilization. It's worth noting here that the spelling of fertilization depends on which type of English you use. Now, like all cells, the gametes contain DNA, the genetic instructions that make us who we are. During fertilization, the DNA of each parent combines, meaning that when the cells fuse, they produce a new, unique cell with a combination of the DNA of each parent. This new cell is called a zygote. The zygote then divides millions upon millions of times and develops into a new organism. The same general process happens in flowering plants. They have male and female gametes which combine to produce a zygote. The male gametes of flowers are found in pollen grains, while the female gametes are found in the ovules. A fertilized ovule develops into a seed, which can develop into a new plant. Unlike sexual reproduction, asexual reproduction involves one parent producing offspring which have DNA that is identical to that parent's DNA. Let's look at a few examples in plants. Some plants produce runners. These are basically long stems that grow horizontally. In certain points along the runner, new vertical stems and roots can form. If separated from the parent plant, these new stem and root systems, the daughter plants, can exist independently. Here you can see a strawberry plant with a runner stem and its daughter plants. Tubers are another method. Tubers are basically just modified plant stems or roots acting as a storage of food for the plant. Potatoes are a really common example of tubers. If you've ever left potatoes for too long before eating them, you might have noticed they grow little green shoots on them. This happens to potatoes in the ground too, and these new stems can grow into new independent plants. Since they ultimately came from a single parent plant, they have the same DNA and are genetically identical to that parent. Another example is bulbs. These are another type of modified stem, again providing a storage of food. Onions are a well-known example of plant bulbs. A single bulb can produce daughter bulbs, which can each grow into separate, genetically identical plants. All of the examples of asexual reproduction in plants outlined so far are natural, meaning they can occur in nature without any human involvement. But humans sometimes use artificial methods of asexual reproduction in plants if the plant is useful to us for food, medicine, etc. With some plants, you can take cuttings. This basically means cutting off a small section of a plant and putting it in the soil. The cutting will form roots and exist as an independent plant. Another method is micropropagation. This is a big topic that deserves a video of its own, but in summary, it involves taking plant tissue from one plant in sterile laboratory conditions and allowing it to grow into new plants with the help of nutrients and hormones. Back to natural examples, plants aren't the only organisms that reproduce asexually. Bacteria reproduce by a single bacterium cell dividing to produce two daughter cells, each one genetically identical to the original parent cell. This is called binary fission. Yeasts are another example. They can reproduce using a technique called budding. This is where a daughter cell, the bud, forms from the parent cell. It has identical DNA to the parent cell and will separate to live as an independent cell. Even some animals can reproduce asexually. For example, certain species of starfish are able to remove a part of their body. Both separate sections of body can then regrow the missing section, leaving two genetically identical individuals from the original one. Both sexual and asexual reproduction have their advantages, but that's all presented in the next video.
Alright, so we're actually going to watch the next video, and he's going to review first. Okay, hold on. Alright, so he's going to go through a little review of what he just said, but and then we're going to have a worksheet. So on the worksheet, you're going to have two columns that tell you about advantages and disadvantages. So that's what he's going to be focusing on in this segment.
To gain anything from this video, you need to understand both sexual and asexual reproduction. I'll be using all of the words you see here, and I'm assuming you understand them already.
All right, I'm going to pause that there. So yes, you should have an understanding of these words, because this is the last unit for this particular section. So next week we're going to review, and then we're going to test. You guys are, so Wednesday, we'll review on Tuesday and test on Wednesday. Okay, so keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. We want to get all our late assignments done, and we're going to, so this is a little bit of review.
If any of this is new to you, you should go back and watch the previous video that introduces all of this. As a quick recap, sexual reproduction involves two parents, each one providing a reproductive cell called a gamete, which combines with the other parent's gamete to produce a new, unique cell called a zygote, which can divide and develop into a complete organism. Asexual reproduction, on the other hand, requires only one parent, and all the offspring are genetic clones of that parent. Amongst plants, animals, fungi, and protoctists, you will find examples of species that can reproduce either sexually or asexually, and many that can do both. All species of bacteria and archaea, however, can only reproduce asexually.
They got a lot of commercials on this section.
Here, we're focusing on the advantages of each type of reproduction. Sexual reproduction has the advantage of providing genetic variation within a population, and so the populations are more likely to survive in changing environments. Asexual reproduction is more time efficient. It requires less energy and doesn't rely on an individual being able to find a mate, meaning populations can grow quickly and survive if the environment is stable. This video will describe and explain the relevance of these ideas. Let's start with the genetic variation that arises from sexual reproduction. Like all cells, gametes contain DNA. Whether we're talking about egg and sperm cells from animals or the gametes found in pollen and ovules in flowering plants, they all contain the parent organism's DNA. DNA is the genetic information that codes for the features of a living organism. How tall a plant is, the shape of a fish's fins, the strong muscles in a lion's legs. Most features are determined, at least in part, by an organism's DNA. When these DNA-containing gametes fuse during fertilization, the DNA of each parent is combined in the zygote. You may think that this would result in the offspring having double the amount of DNA, because they now have their father's DNA plus their mother's DNA. But that's not correct. In fact, in order for the new organism to have the correct amount of DNA, each gamete contains a random half of the DNA of the parent. When these two halves combine, they provide one complete set of DNA in the new cell, which then divides and develops into a new individual. Exactly which bits of the DNA make up the half portion within each gamete is quite random. If we compare the DNA in two egg cells from the same female, they would each have a different combination of DNA. No two egg cells provided by one female contain the same DNA. No two sperm cells provided by one male contain the same DNA. Each gamete is genetically unique. So, if the same two parents have more than one child, each one will be genetically unique. There is zero possibility that two separate instances of fertilization will produce two children that are genetically identical. No two sisters contain exactly the same DNA. No two brothers contain exactly the same DNA. Obviously, you're thinking, what about identical twins? This happens when an egg and sperm cell form a single zygote in a single instance of fertilization. Early in development, the newly forming collection of cells divides into two. Each collection of cells goes on to form two genetically identical individuals. This is a rare occurrence, and it doesn't change the fact that sexual reproduction produces lots of genetically unique individuals. In sexual reproduction, new generations are produced from multiple sets of parents, each offering unique combinations of DNA. All individuals in the new generation will be genetically unique from each other and from their parents. I'll say it again, sexual reproduction produces lots of genetically unique individuals. This is true for every type of organism that reproduces using sexual reproduction. A flowering plant population, for example, will also have genetic variation if reproducing sexually. So what, you might ask? Well, imagine the conditions in the environment change. Let's say these plants live in a location where the winter temperature reaches as low as 5 degrees Celsius. This population is used to that, and most of these plants can survive a minimum temperature of 5 degrees. But remember that none of these individuals are the same. They're all genetically unique. Maybe some of them have the genetic instructions that provide features that allow them to survive at lower temperatures. There may be some that can only survive at higher minimum temperatures, and these individuals are unlikely to survive even an average winter. But now let's say there is a particularly cold season and the temperature drops to 2 degrees Celsius, below what this species is used to. The cold temperatures may kill off many of the individuals, but since all of these individuals are unique, some can survive these colder conditions. As a result of genetic variation, the population is more likely to survive. Notice that genetic variation does not necessarily make each individual more likely to survive changing conditions. It makes the population as a whole more likely to survive. Changing climate, changing food supplies, diseases, the introduction of new predators are all examples of possible changes in the environment that a population may need to be prepared for. Looking at asexual reproduction, remember that each individual produced from a single parent is a genetic clone of the parent. If this population of plants were produced from a single individual via asexual reproduction, they would all be equally at risk of environmental changes. This population is less resistant to environmental change because any change in conditions that kills one individual is more likely to kill all of them. But asexual reproduction is not all bad. Firstly, for sexual reproduction to happen, individuals need to find a mate. Male and female animals must find each other and mate, and sometimes complicated mating rituals are involved. In addition, gametes must be produced in order for fertilization to take place. In the case of flowering plants, the plants obviously must produce flowers, sometimes with large colourful petals and nectar to attract insects. Again, just like in animals, gametes must also be produced. And don't forget fruit and seed development. All of this takes time and energy. In general, the time taken to produce mature offspring via asexual reproduction is much shorter than when using sexual reproduction. So, asexual reproduction is a better way of colonizing an area quickly, assuming conditions are right. So just to reiterate the main points, sexual reproduction has the advantage of providing genetic variation within a population, and so the populations are more likely to survive in changing environments. Asexual reproduction is more time efficient. It requires less energy and doesn't rely on finding a mate, meaning populations can grow quickly and survive if the environment is stable.
Alrighty. So, lovely people, your assignment today actually just review. So if I'm in the module, it is the asexual reproduction worksheet. All right. All right, so pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. The first part of the worksheet is just reading. So it kind of goes over all the things that he said in the video. They're giving you vocabulary, so and pictures. So fragmentation is the same as cutting. He said cuttings in the video. This can also be called vegetative propagation. So keep that in mind. Budding. So he's showing you what budding is. Oh, there's vegetative. Runners are vegetative propagation. Binary fission is basically mitosis. The cell splits up its information and divides in two. Spore formation. If you've ever seen a fern plant and you've seen the little dots on the underside of the leaf, those are spores. Mushrooms also have spores. So they reproduce by sporing. All right, more reading. You have the two tables like he did in the video of advantages and disadvantages. This box is empty for a reason. You don't have to put anything in there. So this is reading. All right, then you have 13 questions that you need to answer and then return it to me. Okay, so take the time to read, answer the 13 questions, and then drop it in the Dropbox. So let me view this as a student. There you go, has a Dropbox. All right, so open the document, highlight the correct answers. Number 13, in my opinion, has two right answers. So I will accept, it would be most appreciative if you could find the two right answers, but I will accept it even if you have one of the two right answers. Okay. This is a picture. A is a picture of the two cells dividing. This is obviously a mushroom. This is a regular leaf. This is not a fern. This is a regular leaf, and these are bacterial cells doing their thing. So for this one, you do need to um, use that in order to answer these first 7 through 10. Okay. All right. And as always, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. But sometimes just come off mic so that everybody can hear your question and I don't have to repeat it. All right, but this should be on the desktop. It's also in the module. Yes, asexual reproduction. All right, so this is Friday. Also, if you have any outstanding assignments that you have not completed, please make sure that you complete them. They upgrade the Infinite Campus on Fridays, and progress reports are going to be available on Monday, I believe, Monday or Tuesday. So you want to make sure that you have the best grade possible because all of your assignments are turned in. All right, that being said, I'm going to do attendance and let you work. Where's my thingy? Yeah. All right, a lot of you didn't do your cancer assignment. Stop what you're doing, do your cancer assignment first. Folks, don't let these assignments pile up on you, okay? Complete the cancer assignment first, and then work on this one. This cancer assignment is going to expire and you'll be late. This one is not due until next week, so work on that. Also, with that assignment, remember I put the picture to help you. Let me share for a second. All right, I'm gonna make this bigger so everybody can see. All right, for that question number 7, I think. So let me, okay. All right, so I put this in the assignment box to help you with that question. They ask you about benign and question number 4. They ask you about the ABCDs of benign and malignant moles. Okay, this one actually goes as far as E, but the ABCD is asymmetry. So that are they the same all the way around, or are they different? So asymmetrical is going to be all sides are even. Sorry, symmetrical. Asymmetrical means they're not. Symmetrical is the same all the way around. Asymmetrical means it's jagged. It's not the same. Some sides are smooth, sometimes are rough. So it's not the same. For the B, the border is either regular or notched. So you want to say, you can say smooth or irregular. So benign is smooth. And folks, I'm giving you the answer. And malignant is irregular or jagged, notched as they called it. All right, color is for the C. Benign is going to have the same color all throughout the mole. If it is malignant, it will have different colors or multicolors. Okay, for the D, is for diameter, and you can say small, okay, or large, larger than 6. So small or large. That's all you have to say. All right, so use this picture. Like I said, I included it in the assignment box to help you with that question. You don't have to research that question. I did it for you. All right. But make sure you get this worksheet done first and then work on today's worksheet. Like I said, that two of you have completed it. Everybody else, you need to get this one done first. All right, just a heads up. Y'all did the benchmark, and they are going to meet with the teachers next week about students who didn't do so hot on the benchmark and arranging tutorials for those of you to look at your weak areas. So just keep that in mind that that's coming. And like I said, it wasn't for a grade, but it was an area that they want to isolate because they want you all to do the very best you can on this end of course milestone exam. So keep that in mind. After the exam, that's when we'll probably work on a final project. So by March, you'll have to do the benchmark again. April, you have to do the milestone, but in May, we'll have a final project to do. Now that all the testing will be over. Okay, maybe we'll stick some dinosaurs in there under. All right, on that coloring assignment, because it was messing up the grade book, Infinite Campus doesn't like when grades get out of whack like that. So I added 6 points um, bonus instead of an additional 12. So you still got your bonus. So it'll be more than 12, but it's not going to be 24. So if you got the bonus, you got 18 instead of 12 because it was messing up Infinite Campus. Next time I have to separate the extra credit in a separate column. Alrighty, folks, we got about 2 minutes left to class. Any questions? Any questions? All right, so again, the cancer assignment is going to be late, so hopefully you were working on that. So I got one submission on that one. All right, so if you're in a good place to stop, go ahead and stop. You may log out. Y'all have a great weekend. Stay warm. It's supposed to get cold and snow this weekend. So they say. Last weekend I did get all that ice. My whole car was one little ice bubble that I had to chisel my way into the car. But so they're looking for this weekend to do the same. Y'all be safe. Be safe. Don't fall. Stay warm. And do your work. Get your work done.